This is virtual racing with real-life stakes.
Great drivers perform when the pressure is at its highest. And that's right here, right now.
I'll call this a 20-car pileup. I've been good with that. As long as it put me in a checkered flag and victory lane.
It ain't a game now. Me and you, we ain't the same now. Lions coming out to play now. Opposition out the way now. Out of the way. You wasn't invited. Say you come to play. I dare you to try it. You don't wanna try me. Then step up to my team. Yeah, out of the way. Yeah, yeah. Out of the way. Yeah, yeah. Out of the way.
Road to $300,000 squares off for a heavyweight fight with the Monster Mile, where tonight for the virtual Dover International Speedway, we say good evening, sim racing fans, and welcome to round 6 of the 2020 eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series. Half of the year spent at your Tuesday evening with us at the iRacing Sports Network, streaming live on eNASCAR.com and across NASCAR's social channels, where alongside Tim Terry and Justin Prince, my name is Evan Pasoko. And Tim, I'll go to you this on first. 5 rounds down on this championship, Bobby Zelensky has been the kind of the guy that's been holding down the fort, if you will, at the top. He has been the champion leader basically throughout all of this, but still in search of a first trip to victory lane, whereas drivers like Luza and Leahy finding that victory lane success has started to close in on him.
Yeah, it could very well come here tonight, but he's got some work to do after the qualifying session. Evan, he's been consistent all season long and looking to continue that here at the Monster Mile, but we've seen some really good races here in the past. Excited to see what we have here on deck for 200 laps here this evening. I don't know how this one's going to play out. Going to see how these first couple laps play out. Some tire wear is going to be here. Man, I can't wait for this.
Yeah, Dover is always a super fun racetrack, Justin, and it's funny because, I think we kind of get used to a track like this. These guys are, have it easy getting around here, but they make it look easy. We only had 3 yellows the last time we were here in 2018, and it kind of got me the mindset that maybe this racetrack isn't as tough as I remembered. So I tried to turn some laps earlier today, and it is tough. And most races, when you're off and into the corner, you actually come down and out of the bank in the straightaways. But the way here is essentially you're coming out of the dip down in turn 2 and then up and out of turn 4, and a lot of drivers we saw as they're right down in the warm-up session actually did not get scored qualifying time. They were making a contact with the wall, and it was negating those times. So make Mr. Mile just as tricky on the sim as it is in real life.
Absolutely, Evan. This is a race that at one point did have some postseason appearances, but now is spring date. Blake Reynolds, though, put it best when he said he doesn't like Dover, and Dover sure doesn't like him. That's because it's a very technical track for the reasons you mentioned. High speeds around this racetrack. Tire saving, very crucial. If you push the car too hard, you're heading off into the safer barrier along one of the straightaways. It's a track with a lot of unknowns and a lot of risks that you have to take to come home to victory lane, or else you'll have a visit from Miles the Monster.
This track, Tim, could have been on and off of the calendar for the last few years, but it makes its 8th appearance this time. We saw it was in 2018 when Michael Conti for what a second win of the round of 8 of the playoffs. But it's different coming into this season, and the storylines as well different, because I think at the top of the headline is Ryan Luza, winner of the last 3 at Homestead, Bristol, and Richmond, as well as the 2017 race winner here. He was runner-up in 2018. He has an opportunity tonight to become the first driver in series history to get 4 wins in a row.
Yeah, absolutely. Ryan Luza could very well break the record here this evening. But Justin, when you look at this racetrack, weather is going to play a factor here tonight, especially with the pit strategy. What are we looking at for weather?
Well, right now tonight, 112 degrees is the track temp. Pretty nice, calm, partly cloudy skies. Lots of clouds, in fact, cycling throughout the evening so far. at 77 degrees, the air temp. That track temp is going to potentially fluctuate a lot tonight, potentially on how those clouds go through. And keep in mind, it's very gusty and windy tonight, similar to what happened at Richmond. Could be interesting how these cars handle themselves off the corners.
And of course, it is a racetrack with all of that noted history, but at the same time, Tim, there's always the level of unpredictability when we come to the virtual Dover International Speedway. What are tonight's iRacing, Tim facts?
Well, we look at the last couple of broadcasts that we've been together on the Saturday Night Thunder for eNASCAR and, of course, the Richmond race a couple of weeks ago. Monster Mash, make sure you have a race car that is ready to dance at lap 175 to get yourself and put yourself in position to win this event. Parade of Champions, 3 times has this race been won, and the driver has gone on to win the championship of this series. Michael Conti in 2014, Kenny Humpy in 2015, and of course, as you mentioned, Ryan Luza in 2017. But bring on the Mayflowers. This is the earliest Dover race on record of the 8 that we have run. 3 times it was used as the penultimate round of the series. This was the 7th race in 2014, which was the earliest prior to this point. And there's a casino on site, so we're going to play the odds here a little bit tonight. 5 drivers have made at least 6 Dover starts with this series, with only the top 2, Conti and Ottinger, having the average finishes in the top 10.
And let's talk race picks with our booth fantasy for tonight, because for the first time in what feels like forever, my pick actually did pretty good last week, I should say, and I'm still a little bit behind Tim. Of course, Justin, you just made your first pick with us 2 Tuesdays ago as well, so we'll leave the honor to you first once more. Round 6 tonight from Dover, who parks it in Victory Lane.
Well, we've seen one driver have some good runs so far throughout the short track stint so far, but just not have the luck tonight. I feel like Jimmy Mullis is going to turn around his luck this evening here at Dover and find his way in Victory Lane tonight. Going to be interesting to see how he'll do for the mid-pack.
He's got a bit of work to do back there in traffic. Tim, how say you?
I'm going to go the same way I did last week, and kind of with the low-hanging fruit with his track record here, I'm going to go with Michael Conti. Has an average finish of 4th place here, has a couple of wins, and the last time we were here, he was the winner. So let's go with Michael Conti again.
Of course, Conti, a noted history here. You mentioned one in his championship season. And for the first time this season, I'm going to go back-to-back on a pick, and I'm going to go with Ryan Luza, and strictly because I want to see history get made. We all kind of oftentimes, don't recognize when we're seeing history being written, and in this eNASCAR space, Ryan has a really good opportunity to do something that nobody's ever done it before, and he has finished 1st and 2nd here in the last 2 races. So I think the number 53 machine is going to be the driver headed to Victory Lane. So that's who we think's going to end up on top. Use the hashtag eNASCAR. Let us know who you think's going to win. But the only thing left to do now is head down trackside, turn up the music as we get set to go racing for round number 6 on 2020. And pole position tonight belongs to Ray Alfala. You know the saying, a country mile? How about a monster mile? By a 1/10 of a second to the next closest driver, the 4-time series champion. It will bring us the green flag alongside number 25 of Nick Ottinger. My pick, Ryan Luza, looking for 4 in a row. We'll start to the inside in 3rd and 4th with Ashton Crowder, Eric Smick, and Michael Conti. Tim, through your top 6.
Garrett Lowe and Matt Busa, Christian Chalner, Brad Davies has a history here as well. He's made 5 starts previous. Corey Vincent and Logan Clampett outside row number 6.
Dylan Duvall starts in 13th tonight with Alex McCollum rounding out row number 7. Bob Bryant starts in row 8 along with Justin Bolton. Steve Sheehan in row 9. Chris Sherburne with the 21-1 in qualifying. And this rounds out the top 9 rows.
And continuing back here, this is the Hornets' Nest through P20 with Malik Ray and Brian Schoenberg, the likes of Jake Nichols, Casey Curran with some work to do. Michael Guerrilla and Graham Boland going to be 23rd and 24th.
And looking back through the rest of the field, John Gorlinski, Phil Diaz, Jimmy Mullis, Blake Reynolds, Keegan Leahy deep in the field, and Bobby Zielinski, row 15 is stout, Justin.
Absolutely. Kane Cook in 31st position. Michael Guest deep in the field in 32nd. Nathan Lyon, 33rd. Terez in 34th. Zach Novak, Jarl Tien, and Chris Overwin round out the drivers in the field tonight.
Look top to bottom at your starting grid as we get set, Tim, for 200 laps and 200 miles of racing from the virtual Monster Mile. What is tonight's ACES race analysis?
Well, we look at the pit window and we have the fuel window maybe a little bit longer than the tire window. We expect these guys down around 78 to 82, could be less if we do get some caution flags. Pit road speed 35 miles an hour as they roll off pit road. Your distance is 200 laps, 200 miles, and your 2018 winner the last time we were here, that was Michael Conti. That's the ACES race analysis from Dover as we get ready to see the green flag in about a mile or so.
And every Tuesday, there's a lot on the line. Not only the points in which will determine who gets the fight for that $100,000 championship at Homestead, $300,000 total, I guess, for the year in Phoenix this year. But as well, there's weekly race payouts. And tonight, your race winner going to walk away with a mini replica Miles the Monster trophy, just like a driver would on any given NASCAR weekend. But the pace car is going to dive in this time, and it will lead the field in the hands of the number 2 Chevrolet of Ray Alfala out in front of the field. As always, happy that you're spending a Tuesday night with us on the iRacing Esports Network. As we say, let's go racing from Dover, live for round 6 of 2020.
Beautiful launch for Ray Alfala to get himself clear into turn number 1. Many of these drivers expect to dive at the bottom. Already trouble in the middle of the pack. Caution's out.
It is an early caution flag, and it is a mess mid-pack down in turns 1 and 2. A lot of drivers scattering to avoid. And I believe Chris Shearburn is going to be the driver that was involved in that one. And Tim, I glanced over, I saw cars all over the place, but admittedly, most of them were just diving to avoid the incident. I think we avoid major calamity in this. Although that's not going to be much reconciliation for the Racing Jobs Chevy of Shearburn, who started in 18th position. And we'll get a second look and just get a little bit of help on that one.
Yeah, most of those cars were able to get rolling once again, and it happens, and it happens quickly here when it does at Dover, as Ray Alfala got that jump, and that was about it before the caution flag flew. We're going to see here what transpired to bring out our first caution flag on lap number 1, and we see the 36 on the outside, that mane and tail car of Chris Shearburn. He's racing with the number 1 to the inside. He goes around. Brian Schoenberg gets a little tap on the back. John Gorlinski turned around as well to bring out the yellow.
I believe that was Casey Kerwin as well, who just squeaked by on the outside and avoided contact. So certainly could have been a lot bigger of an incident. One thing that Dover is known for, Justin, aside from the exciting racing and the thrills and everything associated with it, is the fact that it is a self-cleaning racetrack. And you can see on the shot there, the really only part down on the inside line there of this surface that is not the concrete surface, that little strip of asphalt, your apron, and it's like maybe 6-7 feet wide. Same thing on the back straightaway, there isn't one at all. So if there is an incident, front stretch or back stretch, limited options going to be available for drivers to make it on through. So a lot of them use that grass down there in 1 and 2 as an escape route to make sure they weren't involved in an early calamity. And honestly, didn't look like the incident was caused by anybody over driving, just a freak bit of contact. And just like that, that's how easy it is to send a car around.
Yeah, I was actually talking with a few of the drivers in preparation for tonight, Evan, and a couple actually mentioned if they were stuck on that middle to top line tonight, there's the chance that they might get loose like that. And just unfortunate that it happened so quickly in lap 1, turn 1 of this race. A few drivers now already having to get some significant damage repair done only about a mile into the race.
Yeah, a mile into this one, so drivers are going to be forced down to the pit lane. Unlike what you've seen in the Pro Invitational Series, drivers in the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series do not have any quick repairs. There's a look on the board with one of our drivers in the field tonight. We've got a couple of different on-board looks. And Keegan Leahy mentioned that he's had some good runs here in the past. The Denley Hamlin racing driver out of Halifax, Nova Scotia, running around kind of mid-pack so far in this one in the 32 car. He's scored in 21st position, and another veteran of the series, John Gorlinski. He pilots the 97 car for William Byron Esports, Charlotte, North Carolina. One of the drivers who damaged it, and he's actually just backed up onto the racetrack after coming down pit lane for some service.
Yeah, as you mentioned, involved in that yellow flag and having to come from the back of the field. He was one of the drivers that was involved in the very first race that we had here back in 2011 at Dover, and one of our international drivers as well. Also joining us, that is Jarl Tien, all the way from Norway, wheeling that number 66 car here this evening, Evan, and he led some laps in our last race and did fairly well, so we'll see what Jarl can do as a follow-up act and see if he can get that thing to victory lane tonight.
He's got a bit of work to do in this one. In the 66 cars right now, he's being scored in 31st position. And again, that is essentially the Hornet's Nest, the driver for G2 Esports. And another on board that we'll have with us this evening, Brian Schoenberg, the Californian, driving Clint Boyer Racing, the number 79 machine, back in traffic in 32nd. It actually picked up a bit of damage in his incident in that number 79 Ford Mustang. So he looks like he's on the radio chatting with his team. He's got the fan going as well, so he can stay nice and cool. So all the drivers interested to lead up, Justin, as the lights go on top of the pace car that we're riding on board with. They're going to give us some good views because they are back in the mess.
Yeah, 32nd position specifically for Brian Schoenberg, and going to be interesting to see how he does. He said this is one of his better tracks here at Dover tonight, but will be interesting to see what the strategy is going to be. He was one of the drivers who was planning to stretch as long as he could tonight if we get a long green flag run, because you never know when you're going to get a caution flag at this track or potential tire issues.
We'll see if this is going to be the opportunity to break things out again. Last time we were here in 2018, this race only saw 3 cautions. We had one just now on the opening lap of this race down in turn 1. The field's still going to be in the hands of the 2 of Ray Alfala, but Ryan Lewis are going to go 3rd to 2nd. The outside of the front row, green flag fly is back underway, and it is a great jump for the VRS Chevy out in front. Alfala leads to 1. It is Lewis safely in 2nd. Fight's going to be for 3rd, and Ottinger edges it out atop Eric Smith.
Eric Smith trying to roll turn number 2, takes a look to the inside. Ottinger blocks the run, and Eric J. Smith tried to look to the outside, couldn't do anything there. Garrett Lowe will find his way to 5th, and here comes Michael Conti to the inside. Conti will pick up one more spot. Christian Chalner, he's been having some great runs recently, Evan, and on the outside, currently running in the top 10 early in this one.
And it is high-speed action here at Dover, some 180 miles an hour on the end of the straightaway. Now on board with the Jim Beaver Esports driver, that big green egg Ford of Smith, who picked up a spot off at the top. So did the likes of Luza. One driver who lost a little bit was Garrett Lowe behind him. And Eric Smith trying to set up Nick Ottinger in a passable position, 3rd and 4th right now, as at the very front of the field, Ryan Luza is closing in on Ray Alfala. So a couple of duos, battle for 1st, battle for 3rd. There goes Smith to the inside. Can't find an opening, though, and Ottinger maintains for now.
Drivers talked about how it could be difficult to try and get passes such as these done on the short run. You can get to somebody's bumper even with the dirty air, but it's just about getting a run on them because everyone is similarly compared on speed in the first 25, 30 laps. Once the long runs kick in, that's where we see some of that major separation, how drivers may prioritize short run versus long run in this race tonight.
And you can see your race leaders now separating just a little bit for the rest of the field. Full intervals, of course, going across the top of your screen. 37 drivers slated to start this. They all did. And here's Lewis down to the inside at lap number 10. Qualified 3rd, but only 10 laps in. He is out in front. Ryan Luza, new race leader at lap number 10.
Wasting little time to get to the front of the field, and he will do so and begin to log some laps up in front. Evan, the last time we were here, he led over 100 laps and failed to get to victory lane. We've had a few times here at Dover where drivers have led over 100 laps, over half the race, and went to victory lane. So Ryan Luza trying to continue that trend and try to maybe put 2018 behind him by leading this race. There's that big green egg, number 9 of Eric Smith. Back to the back bumper of Nick Ottinger. Had a little bit of a slide a couple laps ago, Evan, that lost him a little bit of time, but now he's trying to reel back in that William Byron Esports number 25. That is your battle for 3rd.
And it is the best battle right now on track as Garrett Lowe trying to hold off cars from behind. And I do think that Eric J. Smith a bit faster at the moment, but again, Ottinger's got that track position, and well, you wouldn't believe it by seeing what Luza just did to the 4-time champion, Justin, but it isn't that easy to make passes here at Dover. You got to fight to get to the inside of somebody if you want a real good shot at it.
Yeah, it's very difficult to get a pass done unless you're on that bottom line, and if you lose that bottom groove, you're likely falling behind That's why some drivers said tonight they might actually be more defense/riding mode this evening to try and conserve tires again, try and conserve their long run pace this evening, make sure they don't overcook the right side tires. If they have opportunities like this dive to the inside, they'll try and take it though.
Yeah, and you can see that forces the 27 machine, Corey Vincent up to the outside, but Matt Boos is able to make the move, teammate to your race leader. So both of the Williams Esports Fords now running top 10 from Dover. There's the onboard look with the 5 car. He's trying to chase down Christian Challenger, the number 37 car, who has already gained a few spots over the last couple of weeks in the points and with some good runs. Has been separated by Dylan Duvall. He's at the 41 up the road just a little bit. He's pulled away a bit. So Christian might be under fire here. And that Continental machine, the 5 actually going to go to the outside down the back straightaway. Let's see if Christian can hold him with that preferred bottom lane. Not going to happen though. Matt Busso, well done up high.
Corey Vincent closes in on that battle. We'll see if he can get by Christian Challenger. Challenger has had a lot of speed, picked up some speed, saw his social a little bit earlier this week, and has done a lot of laps since he ran some races earlier in the week to pick up some speed on that race car, and right now running within the top 10, but just barely, as Corey Vincent bears down on that number 37 car. Still early in this race though, Evan, as we complete lap number 17.
And on the board with the number 54 machine of Alex McCollum. We already rode on board and in the sim rig. G2 Esports teammate Jarl T. And McCollum right now running P16, the driver stateside. Phillipsburg, New Jersey, up 2 spots, trying to chase down number 1 of Steve Sheehan. You've got the Super Haas Century up the road of Justin Bolton, Bob Bryant, and other drivers, all trying to make some moves. Back here, about 3.5 seconds off of your race leaders, where there is not nearly as much separation car to car.
Yeah, indeed. Compare that towards the front. While there is some separation, there is some pace differences popping up. Garrett Lowe already making the pass on the bottom side for 4th position, and now it seems Eric Smith starting to burn up the tires a little bit, trying to push to maintain track position, losing a lot of time apex off.
And that's going to be the key here. We talked about the corners at Dover, and it's that exit rolling through the center, but being able to get the power down sooner than anybody else to be able to get those runs off and try to execute these moves. And this battle's been going on for quite some time. Of course, Garrett Lowe ended up getting the division of Eric Smith, so he leapfrogs him. And we mentioned it a couple of times this year, Tim, how impressive Garrett Lowe has been. 4th in the championship so far this year. Stepped into the Wood Brothers ride to fill in for Rayo Fowler, who did a team change halfway or in the offseason. He's been real good thus far. Keegan Leahy, though, another driver who we have touched on a little bit in all of this, and he's in a position right now where he's trying to get through the field and try to translate some of that speed into a pass. Here is we're watching the 6 car and the 24 do battle, as it's Jake and Nichols trying to hold off, but unsuccessfully. Nathan Lyon. And here's the concern now, Tim. The inside opens up. Zach Novak on through. Points leader Bobby Zelensky on through as well. Not the kind of mistakes that Nichols can afford.
No, absolutely not. But if you're going to do those mistakes and make those mistakes, Evan, now is the time to make them early in this race. You have some time to rebound and regroup from those small mistakes that you make. We mentioned the 83 of Bobby Zelensky. Zelensky is marching his way through the field, currently in 21st position. Started on row number 15, so he's made some ground. You see Jake Nichols on your screen, the Mode Motorsports driver, is also making some ground with his teammate Phil Diaz in behind him. Those beautiful Mode Motorsports cars trying to make their way up towards the front of the field, but a lot can happen here, and just in front of them, Mullis and McCollum almost have a moment.
It was a close call there down the back stretch, but they're all single filed out now back into 3, and you're not missing anything up at the front of the field. It is Luz open it up at advantage. Now over P2, Nick Ottinger, the 25, with the move to Ray Alfala. A couple of laps back. He's now into 2nd, and Alfala struggling on the long run here because that 21 Ford makes the pass to the inside. Move Garrett Lowe down to 3rd. Michael Conti going to be next on deck. So ironic enough, Justin, talking about how you had mentioned that Brian Lewis had told you he didn't feel that comfortable on the long run, and at least early still in this run. He's thriving, and it's Ray Alfala who blistered the field into qualifying who's having the issues.
It was more so short run, actually, when it came to Lewis in that discussion. He wasn't sure how it would go in the first 30 laps. He felt like it would have been more defensive mode. It's shown, though, that he's one of the quickest cars on the racetrack. He said he was even quicker, though, once they got to lap 30 onward. So it'll be interesting to see what Lewis can do. All of this is while Bobby Zalenski is still trying to maintain pace. This is where that difference is in how some of the drivers may have set up their tires and how well they save their tires in these first 25 or so laps comes into play, because if you kept your tires cool enough, you'll have an extra little bit of cut. You can feel that on corner exit as there's a bit of diciness in front.
Yeah, that was nearly contact back to back as further up the road, Alfala continues to struggle. That was Leahy who almost got turned around. They straightened it out, and we are going to be okay. And as this green flag run continues, I want to welcome a special guest onto the broadcast, Mike Tatoyan, who is the president and CEO of Dover International Speedway. Mike, thanks for joining us.
Hey, thanks. It's great to be on with you guys. It looks amazing. The weather looks beautiful.
Yeah, we're having a good time here in the sim. I know we're obviously not in a position that we thought we would be in at the start of this season. How has this pandemic affected the track and the plans for the rest of the year?
Well, just like every other sports venue, we are just doing our best to get through this this pandemic. But right now, all the focus is on this week. It's on your race tonight. It's on the race this weekend, which is a great way to supplement what we were supposed to be doing this weekend. But our staff is doing a terrific job of getting ready to go next or this coming August. So that's what we're focused on right now.
Yeah, the racing's continuing here online, not only with this race tonight, as you mentioned, with this Coca-Cola iRacing series, but as well with the Pro Invitational on Sunday. What's the value for a track like Dover to be on this platform?
Well, I think this is your either 10th or 11th season. Shortly after I started in the sport, I've always been a fan of iRacing, because not only is it a great tool for guys and gals that are really trying to hone their skills in real situations, but I think from a track promoter's perspective, I think it's a great tool that you guys have. It's kind of like rising tide lifts all boats. So the more successful and the more eyeballs that we can get on air watching these races virtually, we feel that we get a good chance of bringing those fans, converting them, and coming to the track. So I think it's great.
This is the 11th season of competition here with this Coca-Cola iRacing series, and it's the 8th time that Dover has been on the. You're also presenting our race winner tonight with a mini replica monster trophy. It's on the top left of our screen right now. One of the most unique trophies in all of motorsports. That's going to be really cool for you guys to be able to do.
Yeah, it's awesome. Here's the good news. The good news is it's not a sim. It's not a virtual trophy. It's the real replica of what we give out in our national series. So that trophy was awarded first time awarded back to Ryan Newman back in 2004. And I think every track promoter feels that they have the coolest trophy on the circuit. I happen to think we've got the coolest trophy on the circuit, obviously. So somebody tonight, whether it's Michael Conti or Luza or somebody, any one of your 37 competitors, it's going to be pretty cool to have that sitting on the shelf. It's not $300,000, but I'd like to think it's going to be memorable for them to win tonight.
Yeah, if they get the championship at the end of the year, they can put the $100,000 check in his hand, and it'll look real good on their desk. Mike, we appreciate the time, though, tonight. Again, thanks for joining us, and we'll get back to the action here where Ryan Luza is trying to be the driver to walk away with that real replica trophy. He's got right now a 9/10 of a second advantage over Nick Ottinger and Garrett Lowe, as Lowe now assuming that number 3 position, guys. And, well, minus that hiccup on the opening lap, now clean and green through lap 38.
Evan, I think the biggest mover in this race so far was our pole sitter, Ray Alfala. He's fallen already to position number 14. He's got Keegan Leahy on his back bumper. Keegan has come from 29th up to 15. So they've kind of met in the middle a little bit, with Ray falling back, Keegan moving up. Ryan Luza obviously dominating this race so far through the first 40 laps of this one. But we've got some comers and goers already, and we talked about tire wear earlier. This could very well happen, be about halfway through this tire run, per se.
Yeah, close it in as well on quarter distance in this Dover 200. We'll take a quick opportunity to step aside, and when we come back, pit stops may be on the horizon, but so far it has been all Ryan Luza. He's out in front at Dover in search of a 4th straight win in the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series. And back live for the virtual Dover International Speedway, where we continue on the longest green flag run of the night. After an early yellow slowed things down, Ryan Luza started 3rd. He's your current race leader, and we haven't had a ton of time to talk about pit strategy. That's going to be the biggest factor, though. Up next, coverage of tonight's Dover 200 is brought to you by Coca-Cola, the official fan refreshment of eNASCAR, and by ASUS, an official gaming hardware partner of the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series. We normally decide to figure out what the strategy is going to be, Tim Terry, in these races based on fuel. These drivers tend to be able to manage their tires, but tonight it may be the opposite because Michael Conti tweeted earlier that after about 70 laps or so into a run, those tires were getting to the point of blowing. So that could be the main influence tonight over the actual fuel number.
Yeah, we saw a blow with Nathan Lyon earlier this season as well, so these tires could very well blow out before the fuel runs dry on these race cars. I didn't want to bring up the trends earlier, Evan, and I'm kind of afraid to do so. We've had some really good races here before. Michael Conti has won the 2 cleanest races on record at Dover, where we've had 3 cautions and 4 cautions. The average caution count here is 8, with the record of 11, and that was hit twice in this race before. So I kind of thought coming in that, hey, you know, we're going to have some cautions for these guys to pit the tires, but, you know, this race is kind of looking green right now.
And that's good. I mean, that could as well set up a bit of strategy as we're on board with Ashton Crowder, the Burton Kligerman Esports driver to Charlotte, North Carolina, up a few spots, started 7th. And has been able to, or actually is in 7th, but started in 4th, so he's one of the drivers who's dropped back, and that's mainly in part because somebody like a Dylan Duvall has been coming through the field. Duvall started 13th in his Smithfield number 41 Ford up to P6, so these long runs allow these drivers to kind of open things up and try to log some laps, and of course that's when you start to look at the averages, Justin, where being the hot lapper ain't going to be to your up to speed, if you will, and Luza impressed it on the long run, even though that may have been his concern coming into tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things he actually hit upon in terms of strategy, and this was something shared about by a couple different drivers, there's 2 different thought processes. If you go for the 3-stopper, try and split 50-50-50, and that was in theory if the race went green, you'd be able to hot lap a little bit, gain us some time that way. But most drivers are leaning towards trying to split the race in thirds, 67, 67, checkered flag, to try and limit the most amount of stops they can get. Yeah, one car just actually peeled down right as we reached lap 50, Michael Gariglia, in fact.
So he's going to dive down to the pit lane at 1/4 distance. That could tip the captain. Maybe it's going to be a 3-stop strategy for that team. Let's ride on board, though, with our Coca-Cola on board with the 32 of Keegan Leahy. He is one of your biggest movers so far this evening. The number 32 machine started in 29th. He's up to 13th. Let's take a trip around Dover with Leahy. So Leahy continues to try to make his march through the field as the rest of the cars even further up the road. You can see here, this is a group that we've been touching data with all night long. The likes of Eric Smith, Christian Schallner, you got Brad Davies, Justin Bolton, and the 80 Davies, somebody who we haven't talked a ton about, but his Junior Motorsports machine makes it the second duo of teams with both their cars inside of the top 10. We saw that a bit earlier on with Williams, and by the way, that's improving with Matt Busa now up to fourth with his teammate Luz leading the race. But the Junior Motorsports duo doing it pretty good. They both run exactly where they started, and that's Mike Conti P6. And back there in the number 10 spot had been Davies, but he just lost out in that battle to Bolton, so he's got a little bit of work to do still.
You mentioned possibly a dark horse pick in this one as you see the 53 of Ryan Luza put a lap on Brian Schoenberg. The Stewart Haas teammates, you look at Justin Bolton, he's got a couple of top 5 finishes here before, so he might be one to watch when the chips are down here at the end of this race. But he's coming to the front. You continue to watch the battle right there. There's the 9 of Eric Smith. Talk about comers and goers. He's fallen back a little bit outside the top 5. That'll be a battle for position number 8. In behind, Keegan Leahy, Brad Davies, and Christian Schallner are there as well. So there's some drivers coming towards the front of the field on this first run. And, you know, they might be learning something, what they can do with their tires, how hard they can push them. And hopefully they'll get those tire readings after the first run. You'll be able to see what goes on if you're the crew chief. There's Dylan Duvall in the 41. Told me he didn't know what he really had for speed today, Evan. But right now it's looking like he's got top 5 speed, at least on the long run. He's had a lot of bad luck trying to pull himself out of a hole in the points. And so far so good for that Smithfield Ford.
He's doing a real good job, and you pick up the action here. This is the fight for second position. Nick Ottinger has it, but Garrett Lowe wants it. Last time by the 21. About a tenth of a second faster, so let's go with that virtual visor cam. See almost exactly what Garrett Lowe is seeing right now as he tries to chase down that Logitech G Chevy of Ottinger in front of him, because Ryan Luza was able to power out to that lead, Justin, but it has balanced out since then. It's been pretty steady. Loses that next car up the road ahead of Ottinger there. It's been pretty stable at about 1 second in distance, so it's not like that Ottinger Lowe find themselves way off from pace and looking pretty sporty. In fact, Lowe, if he can get around Ottinger here, may even be the fastest car of those in the top 5.
Yeah, in fact, he's been turning laps here and there quicker than the race leader and Ottinger at times. Ottinger has been dead even on lap times, give or take, for the past 3 or so laps. Keep in mind as well, when these drivers elect to pit, there's already about 2 seconds of fall from the racetrack compared to the pace right now of Guerrilla right now, who is on that 3-stop and the only one to do so right now. So when these drivers come down, it could be vital on, if you try and undercut somebody, it could be the difference between trying to gain a position and potentially losing position if you stay on the track.
And with Guerrilla diving to the pit lane, we also have Corey Vincent on pit road right now, Tim. I thought that maybe that meant that we were going to go for the 3-stopper, as here's the pass for second. Low to the inside of Ottinger. Easy does it. Nick probably could have tried to cross him up there, opts not to, and move Garrett Lowe down into a race high P2. But, you know, if that decision for 3 stops was going to be for everybody, they would have flocked to the pit lane to buy now. But I think with that tire number, more so than the fuel number tonight, if this thing can stay green, probably looking more in the range of a 2-stopper.
This is about the time, Evan, we're going to start to see these tires fall off a little bit. You mentioned that golden number of about 70 that Michael Conti tweeted out a little bit earlier this afternoon, and if we get to 70 laps consecutive green here, we'll go about 75 or so, because we had that early caution. So that'll be about the number that we start seeing these guys really dive down pit road. We'll see those guys that were able to conserve a little bit, maybe stay out a little bit longer. As you see the double box, there's a nice battle for position number 7. Keegan Leahy begins to look underneath Eric Smith, and you see a couple of cars coming off pit road. That's Brian Schoenberg in the 79.
Yeah, Ray Alvala also down to the pit lane, so a big jump there for the 2 car after kind of struggling on the long run here. Ray fell back to 25th position decided to come down to the pit lane, and he is in for 4 tire service. So now that Garrett Lowe's been able to get around for that number 2 spot, Justin, I said that he's probably the best car in the top 5, and it is by a lot, and Ryan Luza recognizes that one because Lowe closed the gap to half a second. So Luza down pit road. He brings Nick Ottinger in behind him, and that'll put Garrett Lowe out to the race lead. How long for that ride spin forward to respond?
If I was him, I'd respond very quickly here because this is right on schedule for Luza and what his team was projecting for tonight's race. If I was Lowe, try and come in this time by, slowing down, in fact, coming in this time to follow suit.
And it is a slow pit lane here at Dover, 35 miles an hour. You got to get these things mowed down to, and he locked up the left front just a little bit, so he's in for service, and that will cycle things through to give the current race lead to Dylan Duvall, Tim. So basically, right on cue, they all rush to the pit lane, and I think it was a smart call by Luza to go for the short pit from the lead to defend against that charge from Lowe. You see Duvall now going to come in. Michael Conti also from second. And race leader now, Keegan Leahy. All these drivers trying to get some bonus points in this cycle.
Yeah, the 2 Nova Scotian drivers in the field are going to lead a couple laps. I know it's been a tough stretch for the province of Nova Scotia, so good to see that little tidbit up front. Brian Schoenberg gets his lap back. Leahy should be down pit road this time by. I do believe he's a little sideways coming onto pit road, but he's going to get it down to pit road. And one of the toughest pit roads here, Evan, because you got to get off that banking and make sure you don't do what Keegan Leahy just did and get that thing sideways and lose a little bit of time. But it's looking like he's good down there in the Denny Hamlin Racing 32.
It's not good when you straddle the banking of 24 degrees and that apron. That's when the cars can tend to get sideways, and that's nearly what happened with Leahy. I agree, one of the tougher pit lanes. You can see Bobby Zelensky now slow. You actually have to use the racetrack to check up, and he's going to miss pit road. Can't do it. Bobby Zelensky, your race leader, misses pit lane entry, and your championship points leader now is going to throw away a ton of time, Justin.
That's going to be gobs of time, in fact, on the racetrack. Already lost the current race lead to Jarl Tien with that mistake. It's such a difficult pit lane to try and enter, mind you, because you need to try and keep it as fast as possible and duck down as quick as you can off that banking into turn 4 and down the pit lane. If you try and take it too conservatively, you can lose 2 or 3 seconds. If you miss it, guess what? You're going to lose the 2 or 3 seconds just like that anyway.
Yeah, and he locked up the tire as well, getting dented into the pit lane, so he was awfully close on that 35-mile-an-hour limit. The other thing I noticed there, Tim, is it is just now Jarl Tien who is yet, you can see the 16 car of Chris Overland unlapping himself, getting around, is now the 99 machine as well. Clampett is into the boxes. Unlike most tracks, these drivers aren't diving to the apron first, as the battle for the net race lead goes in favor of the 53 of Ryan Luza there, although, of course, expecting that to happen with Tien, maybe trying a different fuel run, or maybe he's one of those drivers that is trying to push the tires a little bit longer than what that moniker may be. But, Tim, here, they're not going to the apron, then slowing down. They're actually slowing down on the bottom of the banking, which is, in effect, the racing surface. So communication between drivers has to be really, of a premium here tonight as well.
Yeah, absolutely. As Jarl Tien should be down on pit road this time by. So your leader at one point had every driver 1 lap down, but now he comes down onto pit road. We saw him do some pit strategy a couple of rounds ago, and it almost worked out to a victory, Evan. But I just don't see a one-stop strategy working here, and I just don't see it. But that's why they're down there on the boxes, and these guys have crew chiefs and spotters doing it, and we're up here trying to talk about it and trying to figure it out for ourselves. But Ryan Luza will go back up to the top of the board. Nick Ottinger in position at number 2, and Garrett Lowe will be in position number 3. So Lowe was really strong on that long run, Evan. We'll see what he can do here now the pit stops have cycled through.
One thing to note, though, Tim, in terms of that stretching as long as you could in the case of Jarl Tien, some drivers actually try to weigh that balance out. They weren't expecting drivers to go all the way to the end of the fuel window, yes, but you never know when a caution flag comes out of the middle of a pit window, let's say. If it worked out for him, he would have been one of the few drivers on the lead lap with some of the freshest tires on the track. It's a gamble. Unfortunately for him, gamble didn't pay off at that point of the race.
And this cycle also shows us that the earlier you get down to the pit lane, actually, the better. Of course, you do have that risk of going a lap down, and if a yellow were to come out, you would be caught out there, yes. and it could have messed up, where you're running. But Ryan Luza came down to the pit lane with Nick Ottinger on the same lap, and that's how they run a 1-2. You can see Luza started up front. He runs up front. He's been very good after he took over the race lead 10 laps in, but he just hit the fence that time at turn number 4. The car you're seeing is Bobby Zelensky. That is not for position. The car therefore behind is. Here comes Nick Ottinger as Luza hit the wall. Can Nick Ottinger go to the point? Currently running in second position, follow Luza down to the pit lane. Both of these drivers were able to leapfrog ahead of Garrett Lowe, who waited and is in third. But here he goes, looking to the inside. Luza not going to bite and give him the spot, though. It is going to make Nick Ottinger work for this one. Is that damage hurting the 53?
Absolutely, it would be. The 25 of Ottinger, though, he can't wait for long. We saw Garrett Lowe so strong on that run, but they can't waste any time here as Garrett Lowe in third, Ottinger back to the inside. We're side by side for the lead. The 25 is going to go to the top.
So new race leader Nick Ottinger at lap number 80. He gets to go on through. Lap traffic in the mix as well. So Ottinger takes it from Luza. That may hurt him in the long run. Then, of course, we talked about Garrett Lowe trying to get up through the field in third. Even further back, you've got the likes of Matt Busa running in the number 4 spot. Eric Smith is in fifth. So, these are drivers who didn't really gamble that much on the strategy. Not a whole lot lost or gained for Matt Busa. He stays P8, which is exactly where he had been, as the sun now sticks out back from behind the clouds. And then it is Smith behind Justin, who has been kind of up and down this top 10 tonight, but right now consistent, which is what he is looking for, P5.
Yeah, tonight's been one of the fastest races for him in terms of how quick his car has been from Q trim to race trim all night long. He's been consistently amongst the top 10 drivers in terms of pace, was top 5 in practice, was top 5 in qualifying as seen at the top of the broadcast. He's pretty quick. Mike Conti's also very quick right now at this point in the 7th spot, with his teammate Brad Davies in the 8th position, about 7.5 seconds back in the lead.
Yeah, and then one more spot back behind, you can see Brad Davies in the number 8 spot. You'll find Ashton Crowder, so the Valvoline entry for Burton Clearbit Esports runs in the number 9 spot. He's about a half a second off of Brad Davies, so unable to challenge him immediately for the spot. And then Christian Chaloner rounds out your top 10 in his number 37 Chevrolet. So that's how they shake out after the first exchange of pit stops. And now the battle that I'm interested in is the fight for second, because Luza was seemingly on cruise control. But Tim, I did note before the pit stops that he was not walking away with this. That Ottinger and Lowe were actually pretty good at maintaining the gap. And in fact, when Lowe made the pass for second, he was faster. You couple that with Luza making a mistake, hitting the wall and losing the race lead. He's about to be under fire, but the 21 car, Garrett Lowe, is all over him in a fight for P2.
And the point I made a little bit earlier, if you're Nick Ottinger, you want to get by Ryan Luza, because Garrett Lowe, we know he has long run speed, and you don't want to be caught up with that battle for the lead for too long. We've seen Ottinger step away a little bit, albeit through some of the lap traffic, and he's still fighting a little bit of lap traffic ahead of him. But that battle for second now, Garrett Lowe is there on Ryan Luza. I think slapping the wall a couple of laps ago, Evan, probably did not help. And oh, by the way, here's Matt Busa as well, the 5 car coming up here and trying to battle with his teammate. We have a 3-car battle for position number 2. There goes the 21 of Garrett Lowe to the inside, and he'll bring Matt Busa along with him, the Williams Esports teammate, side by side for a moment, but give it to the 5.
It's still a good night for Williams, but their 2 drivers have flip-flopped spots, as you mentioned, because Busa gets on through. That 53 mission to lose adjusted. I don't know if a little bit of repairs down in the pit lane is going to be able to fix it. I don't know if he, he heated the tires and slid the tires or whatever the issue is, but he is really, really struggling right now after being pretty much so calm and in control that first time through. I thought that he made the right call on the pit strategy to come in first, but all it takes is that momentary lapse in judgment that Miles the Monster comes up and grabs you.
Yeah, we talked about a little bit how if you make sure your tires are in very good condition in terms of the temps, you're able to have better rotation and cut off the corner better. If you overheat them, you're trying to hold on for dear life because you're essentially nearly plowing up into that safer barrier on the straightaways because of how hot that right front tire can get. For Luza, he's got to try and keep himself calm and conservative right now because that's something his fellow competitors know him for. Right now, though, he is 0.2 of a second off these 2 cars, battling still for second and third.
Yeah, and how about Busa, Tim? Because we've been talking about him coming through the field, and now this is the engaging battle on track. Both of these cars, second and third, are in fact faster. The race leader, Nick Ottinger. Ottinger working around teammate to the car in second of Garrett Lowe. That was Chris Overland, the lapped car that he was dealing with, so thought maybe Chris would have held him up just a little bit to help his teammate out, but Busa's catching Lowe, while Lowe is catching Ottinger. So you subtract Ryan Loser from the equation, we have a pretty convincing three-way fight for the race lead up here if they could find some consistent laps. Busa missed it the last time by and dropped a few tenths.
It's good to see Matt Busa up here, former championship contender in this eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing series. Hasn't had the best of seasons, he hasn't had the worst of seasons. It's kind of been middle of the road. Currently sitting 13th in the point standings. A good run here could really turn the momentum around heading into the meat of the season. There's the 32 of Keegan Leahy on your screen, and Keegan has been steadily working his way towards the front of the field, currently sitting in position at number 12, and trying to chase down Bob Bryant would be next on his list, just past Steve Sheehan in behind, and actually just past Bob Bryant there, so that'll move him up to position number 11, trying to get up to the top 10, and Christian Chalner about 5 lengths ahead of him.
We do have these packs of cars going to roll through the field right now, and it's been a real good run for Leahy, 29th to 11th. We've been following him through the field for a bunch of those escapades, and the likes of Bob Bryant up a lot. How about a Nathan Lyon, though? Somebody we haven't talked a ton about. The number 6 car, 33rd to 15th. He's fighting with Michael Guest, who's gone 32nd to 16th. But there's a whole host of drivers who've been making big moves, of course. We talked about some of those names, some big names, in fact, Justin, who were starting to mid-pack in this one, and we kind of thought, well, that's a long way to go, and I'm sure they've got the confidence that they can do it, but it's a lot easier if you're a Michael Conti or Eric Smith, because these are two drivers who have started top 10. They run top 10. They've been here all night, but Smith down 2 positions since the end of the pit cycle, trying to fight to get one of them back.
Yeah, then you have Keegan Leahy, mind you, who was expected to be one of the fastest cars on the track tonight, who made mistakes in qualifying. Guess what? Has a good run for a top 10 spot right here, and it looks like Chowder knows he's got one of the quickest cars. Just gave him the spot. 10th of a second quicker last time by was Leahy.
He stepped it up the hill just a little bit and allowed Keegan Leahy to go on by. And when you've got separation like this at a green flag run, I think that's the right decision to make. You don't need to fight the guy over it. So he virtually sticks the hand out the window net, waves him on by. Keegan Leahy, for the first time tonight, Tim, at least on a green flag run, is a top 10 race car. And it doesn't have to go far to find the next one. Ashton Crowder next on deck. And back live from the virtual Dover International Speedway. Apologize about the technical issues. Still back at it here, working lap number 109 of 200 and having to miss the bunch. Still under green flag conditions. And Nick Ottinger is still your race leader, working again past the halfway point in this 6th race of the 2020 eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series. Evan Pasoko, Tim Terry, and Justin Prince up with you. And Tim, we've seen Ottinger take over the race lead, and I thought that next domino to fall would be Lowe, closing in from second, but admittedly, Nick Ottinger's got this thing figured out up front into clean air. He has now started to pull away just a little bit from Lowe in second and Busa in third, sitting pretty in that 25 Chevy.
After he made that pass for the lead on Ryan Luza, he encountered some lap traffic, Evan, got through that, and ever since then, it's been about equidistance between himself and Garrett Lowe, about 7 to 8 tenths of a second or so. You can see that gap all the way back there now. You see Matt Busa falling back a little bit to a 1.5 seconds, then Ryan Luza falling off of his teammate a little bit, and then Dylan Duval comfortably in position number 5, no pressure in front, no pressure from behind for the 5th place position. So this green flag run has kind of separated the men from the boys a little bit, as we expect these guys down about 135 or so.
Yeah, and that should be when they do the final trip down to the pit lane when we get to that point. Watching the battle right now for 7th on the back. Eric J. Smith, the lead car in all of this, the number 9, currently running in 7th position. Behind him, it is Brad Davies at 8th, Keegan Leahy in 9th, and again, without much assistance from Yellows, it has been Keegan Leahy, one of the best cars on the racetrack. Can't really go apples to apples, his lap times versus the leaders, because he's been passing cars for a lot of this, but again, just entered the top 10 before that halfway point, Justin, and now is a real good opportunity to get a few more.
Believe it or not, I took a question actually out of Tim Terry's hat in terms of which driver, in your opinion, would have a good performance tonight. Out of all the drivers I spoke with, just about every single one of them said Keegan Leahy is always a threat at this racetrack. He's led a lot of laps here before. The last time we were at this racetrack, he was quick. Now, he's quick once more. It'd be a major question if he didn't have the struggles in qualifying where he'd be right now, because he's one of the quickest cars on the racetrack, dead even with Nick Ottinger and Garrett Lowe in pace.
Yeah, this is once again a look with our Coca-Cola onboard camera with that 32 of Leahy, and is right on the deck. Look at now, Brad Davies up to the bumper, but unable to kind of position that car inside or outside, so he'll stay in line for the time being. Reset and try again, and you notice that a lot more cars lined up. Those are mostly all for position. There is lapped car Brian Schoenberg in the midst here as well. So the car in front of Smith is not for position. That would be Michael Conti a little bit further up the road. But does Brad Davies fight Keegan Leahy over this, Tim, or does he take the lane that we saw other drivers do and challenge to buy this same guy and get out of the way and let him on through? Because Keegan's there, all but knocking on the bumper.
It depends what kind of pace you want to run. As you see the 42 on your screen of Bob Bryant, that is Graham Bolin ahead of him. The 77 of Ashton Crowder also there as well. It all comes down to pace right now, Evan, because these drivers, 135, 140, we expect them down for what would be their final green flag pit stop of the evening. They can go about 60 laps to the end, so 140, if you can stretch it that far on the tires, would be ideal. But we've seen a couple of drivers miss pit road on that green flag run the first time down, so this could play out fairly well here. We're seeing some green flag racing here as Ashton Crowder loses a spot on the racetrack to Graham Bolin, and there goes the 42 and the 1 in behind. Bob Bryant and Steve Sheehan looking to pick up one more spot.
Yeah, Bryant actually flashed the nose to the inside of Crowder, and I thought was committed to try to make that pass in turn 3, opted to back out of it. Now he's got to run at turn number 2, looking to the inside to fight for 12th, but again, Crowder not giving him the lane, driving it in hard on the bottom, and he's going to make Bob Bryant fight for this spot. And of course, Sheehan, the longer that battle in front goes on for, going to close in and get up a 3-way fight for position 12 on back.
It looks like Bob the Builder is really quick right now. The problem is he just can't be able to run off the corner to try and make a move. Compare that right now to Leahy, and he's somehow been finding that middle line to get some speed a little bit. That's a line that most people were saying they'd try to avoid tonight. It looks like he's doing anything he can to try and get out of some dirty air and try and get some extra runs, see if he can change some lines as pit stops are backing away.
Yeah, the 3 car going to be the first one, or one of the first to die to the pit lane. That's Blake Reynolds from way back in 27th position. His Coca-Cola Chevrolet is down for service, so that's going to take care of him to maybe the distance. Tim, I don't know, just inside of 80 laps to go. It's an awful long way.
Yeah, I would almost think they go a little bit further, but maybe they're anticipating something happening on this green flag run. But the 25 and Nick Ottinger continues to stay out. Guerrilla underneath him to bring back one more lap. You continue to see this battle on your screen between the 88 of Brad Davies and the 32 of Keegan Leahy. The battle for position number 8 rages on, and Brad's making Keegan move to the outside line, and Keegan hasn't been able to get that run off the corner. Might be able to get it here, though. The 88 little bobble to the inside, and Keegan Leahy picks up the position.
But we said earlier tonight that it's going to be hard to make spots if you cannot get that inside positioning. Brad Davies wanted to fight him for it. I think it made life a whole lot harder for Keegan Leahy than it needed to be. But in the end, he does get that position. And Justin, I'm curious how much of that was Davies trying to hold up Leahy, because his teammate Michael Conti a little bit further up the road as well. Let's take a second look, though, with our ACES replay here. On board with Keegan. Look at the car up on the outside, into the outside wall, and is going to come back down in front of traffic. That's Vincent, and that was a real pucker moment for the 32 car, seeing all that unfold right in front of him.
Yeah, really had to be careful once that happened to get back on the gas, because that top line, if you hit the gas too hard, you can end up going to safer barrier. Nick Ottinger, though, is now in the pits.
Your race leader going to dive off it in, so Nick Ottinger first to pit road. This is on the very, very edge of what we thought the fuel window would be. 75 laps to go. He is in, and of course, getting that fresh rubber first, going to give him an immediate advantage. When do we cycle back out? Ray Alfala also onto the pit lane, the driver who started up front but has struggled immensely since then. And all eyes are on that kind of orange and white number 21 Ford of Garrett Lowe. He's the challenger to Ottinger. Does he come to pit road? Timmy didn't immediately follow him down, has now stayed out for 2 additional laps, so clearly he's got his own fuel number in mind as the 4 machine on fresh tires of Santiago Tires goes on to buy.
Yeah, the top 5 that are on the racetrack or that are in the scoring pile and stayed on the racetrack that last time by. You can go a little bit further on the fuel, I believe, but I think the tires are going to be screaming that they want changed before the fuel does. And I would almost think that you would go a little bit further on this run, but Nick Ottinger down on pit road trying a different strategy than some of these drivers that are staying out on the racetrack. Top 5 that time still stay out on this racetrack. And you look back to Ray Alfala, who had fallen like a stone throughout this field. You would think maybe a guy like Ryan Luza, who's had some issues as Brad Davies comes on to pit road on this lap, maybe those guys might be screaming a little more for tires, but your leader stays out again this time by to complete 129 on the racetrack.
Yeah, and loses lap times. I mean, last time by a 23.503. That was, about a half a tenth off of what Garrett Lowe's doing up at the front of the field, but better than Ibusa in second. But it's obvious, Justin, that the damage is having some sort of effect. I think the biggest question mark for him when he hits the stall is that time for repairs to be completed going to be less at about the 14 or 15 seconds that a normal stop would be? And if he would require more repairs, would he sit in the box? Or I think with this relative speed, I would put those repairs off. Might not allow you to fight for the race win, but I think that maybe rounded around with some damage in third would allow you to finish P3 as opposed to, giving up 5 or 6 spots to get a little bit back.
You're not getting the repairs done during the green flag run. Whatever damage you have with your race car, you're trying to carry it all the way to if you get a caution flag, and that's where you get the damage repair done. It's too much time you lose even by taking a second of damage repair. For Ryan Lewis, he might get maybe a few tenths of a second done, but it's interesting to see when those types of drivers come down, especially with Eric J. Smith now down the pit lane.
Smith also down to the pit lane, so it is still a low. Busa, Luza, 1, 2, 3. So surprised that, unlike on the last cycle of pit stops, once the first car came in, your race leaders did not flock. Now we see Michael Conti pit, who was running last time by in position number 5. So he's in for service. And, the 5 car, Busa, a little bit close on the railing that time. The 42 is in. Pit road entry continues to be a struggle.
We kind of saw that with Keegan Leahy, the first round of green flag pit stops, trying to slide that race car in. We saw Bobby Zielinski miss his pit road entry. The 21 appears to be coming down this time by, and it looks a little conservative for Garrett Lowe. But considering some of the pit road entries we've seen here this evening, that might be the smartest thing to do as Ryan Luza stays out on the racetrack and will lead one more on the racetrack, complete lap 134. There's Keegan in, and a couple sliding in behind.
Yeah, 35 miles an hour is way, way slow, and they're all basically locking them up to get down to that speed. Not worried, of course, about flat spot or heating up those tires because you're taking them off. Here's an onboard look with Luza. Watch him drive down to to the pit lane. That looked nice and calm from the onboard. The outside shot would suggest that it was a little bit more sketchy because he also locked up the front tires. So even when they're trying to be conservative, as we see Crowder down, McCollum down to the pit lane, Shearburn almost into the barrels. You got Guest, Lyon, all these drivers down into pit lane, but even when they try to be smart about it, still pushing to the limits.
Should note that Guest had to come down a second time after he missed the pit boxes the first time around, Devin. There's so many marbles down to the bottom of the racetrack that's causing so many cars to slide around. There's so much rubber buildup, dirt, all that have accumulated as this green flag run has gone on. And because of all that, it's going to be very difficult to get locked up on the brakes. You're going to have a lot of cars sliding like we've seen here. It's going to be tricky for the rest of the drivers who have to pit still.
And no surprise, Nick Ottinger having pitted before all of these drivers is cycled out to the net race lead. Oh, and there's contact at the back straightaway. Eric Smith just about nearly got turned as he came up a bit on Jarl Tien, I believe, who bounced off of the outside wall. And what a save by Smith to keep this thing green.
One of the 4 drivers that have stayed out on the racetrack late here, Jarl Tien, being one of those who ride on board with the driver in the 66, currently scored in position number 3. John Gorlinski out ahead of him, Zach Novak out ahead of him, and Jake Nichols just got past, or came down pit road. So there's 3 on the racetrack right now, Evan, that have yet to come down for service on their race cars. Novak, Gorlinski, and Tien. Then you go back to what would be the net race lead with Nick Ottinger and the rest of the field.
And his advantage has grown. Nick Ottinger nearly 4 seconds ahead of Jake Nichols, who is one of those drivers who is yet to pit. The actual one you got to look at is with Garrett Lowe, and it is even better in there.
Oh, look at that. Zach Novak hit the barrels coming in the pit lane.
No yellow. We're going to stay green because he was off the racetrack, but the issue was, again, and we saw it live, transitioned as he was trying to slow down while straddling the banking and the flat of the apron. And that's what upset that race car. He got sideways, was the right rear of his Sunoco Toyota that smacked the barrels, spun him around backwards. But again, off the racing surface, no yellow. We stay green. And a tough night for Novak. Tim gets worse.
And there's your pass for the lead. Just had a pass between teammates for second, and Nick Ottinger able to get by Jarl Tien. So now Nick Ottinger will go back to the top of the scoring pylon at the end of 141 laps here from the Monster Mile. And Jarl Tien, John Gorlinski, as you take a look at the replay of what happened to Zach Novak coming on to pit road, we only have 2 drivers that have stayed out and tried to extend this thing. Here's that transition from the concrete down to the apron, and it's tough trying to get it down to pit speed and try to straddle that thing, and he's going to have some damage from those barrels.
And it's also funny, and a caution flag now at lap 142. The yellow flag is out, and we are not done yet. All of a sudden, when we had just completed the final cycle of green flag stops and thought this thing was over, it is an issue with Alex McCollum, who was one of them in turn 2. But I believe it was a team car, actually. How about this? The 97 of John Gorlinski, Justin, was the one around, and this is going to hurt his teammate the most. And it was a bit of 3 wide contact between cars that had gotten tires and were trying to get around John, who had yet to come down to the pit lane. The replay will show you that Gorlinski got tagged by Jimmy Mullis.
Yeah, this is absolutely huge for the whole complexion of the race. Just 14 cars on the lead lap. He was trying to let by these cars. He just didn't realize they were already side by side. Had a heck of a save up in the marbles, but just kept the torque up in the wheel. Eventually, though, it just overcorrected and snapped to the right. Able to lock it up to prevent any more damage, but that completely changes this whole entire race.
And there you saw Alex McCollum. He's that car on the inside wall who just spun trying to avoid the incident, checked it up, and all of a sudden, Nick Ottinger now has to come back down to the pit lane. So Ottinger gives up the top spot for fresh tires, and we're closing in on the final quarter of this race, the Dover 200. You're watching the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing series on the iRacing Esports Network. Coverage of tonight's Dover 200 is brought to you by Coca-Cola, the official fan refreshment of eNASCAR, and by Asus, an official gaming hardware partner of the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing series. We're pacing at lap 145. We had just completed what should have been the final trip down to the pit lane tonight, and then a yellow came out. It was the teammate of race leader Nick Ottinger involved in an incident, and as we stepped aside into an iRacing non-stop, your race leaders all came down pit road for fresh tires. So even though most of them had only gone about 10 laps, they all decided to agree, basically, on 4 tires, with the exception of Dylan Duval, who I think went with 2 towards the front of the field. So Nick Ottinger does not sacrifice any positions. The big hurt here is going to be that he really pulled a lot of time on everybody else in that pit cycle, and that's going to be what goes away. Big wins for somebody like Jarl Tien, who, having stayed out now, is all of a sudden P2.
And I think when you look at this and you see all the wave arounds coming by in the pace car, we had a ton of drivers stay out and either get their lap back or get one of their 2 laps back in the case of Jake Nichols, who was just behind the pace car when we went green. So Jimmy Mullis, Santi Tierez, Malik Ray, Ashton Crowder, Michael Guest, Justin Bolton, Chris Shearburn, Nathan Lyon, Alex McCollum, and Phil Diaz stayed out on that caution flag to get that wave around as you right on board with the 97 of John Gorlinski, who's riding up here in the top 4, currently on the outside of row 2.
And that's the on-board look for him, as he's going to be 4th for this restart. Let's ride on board with him, and let's see how he tries to lock in and to go for this thing here, having, again, just been involved in an incident. But, again, he had stayed out to that point, so he actually wins out in all of this, getting P4 after starting in the number 25 spot. But the real control car here is teammate Nick Ottinger. The 25 is going to be in front as we look for the restart with 54 laps to go. And he was doing that all with one hand on the wheel. We saw Dale Jr. doing that in the Pro Invitational Series. John was a little bit more up and onto the wheel in that exchange. But, of course, through all of this, dropping back a little bit down through the standings, he ends up P6. And he's in the first battle on track between he and the 42 of Bob Bryant. He just got passed by Ryan Luza, who falls to P8, continuing to try to bounce back from damage suffered in a bit of a wall slap earlier on this evening. On board with Eric J. Smith. He's P5. You're looking up to the 41 of Dylan Duval.
And take a look at all this traffic starting to build up around this track. Many drivers still trying to get to the bottom line. Gorlinski, though, just couldn't get going off that start of and in. Now he's getting absolutely freight train all the way back to the mid-pack in the span of a couple laps.
Yeah, and that's just how it plays out. You get kind of eaten up by these fast drivers. They're so almost 3 wide down the back straightaway, trying to get around Gorlinski. But it is a breakaway for the top 2 cars on track as this battle for 3rd on the back continues. And Jarl Tien is going to have a whale of a fight on his hands, trying to hold off the likes of Duval, Smith, Conti, and others. In fact, Conti to the inside of it. There's the battle up at the front of the field. The 21 car of Garrett Lowe tried to capitalize on a mistake there. Ottinger bobbled, looked to the outside, can't get it.
Yeah, that was a mistake there. Garrett Lowe got the wall off of corner number 4, and he's going to lose a ton of time to Ottinger. Ottinger going to be able to drive away a little bit here, I think, with that damage to the spin number 21. Battle behind them, though. Here comes Dylan Duval to the inside. Smithfield Ford trying to pick up one more spot and bring a friend in Michael Conti along with him. Jarl Tien in the middle goes to the inside line. Nothing doing there, but shuts the door before Conti's able to make the move.
And the 66 not done yet. I think Michael Conti going to be quite the challenger here for the 8 machine, as Conti doesn't try to make a move yet, but this has bridged the gap between what was, when I mentioned it, a breakaway for the top 2, but Nick Ottinger makes a mistake. Garrett Lowe closes on him. Lowe gets into the fence, and now it's all fair game. Here's Conti now to the bottom of Tien for 4th and 5th position. He's got the preferred inside line, and the WR1 Sim Chassis Chevy makes the pass. Tien now continuing the onslaught because it's Eric Smith now to the bottom.
That wasn't pretty, trying to get himself down to the bottom line. Completely came across the nose nearly of the big green egg machine. But Tyrion was doing that because he knows that if he doesn't get to the bottom quickly, he's going to just keep on dropping and dropping. In fact, he's trying to find the next hole in the traffic already. Behind Bob Ryan, he'll go.
And my concern is we saw this happen with Luzo once already tonight, Tim. You smack the wall with a good bit of force, and it is obviously going to have a lasting impact. And, well, Garrett Lowe had been all over Nick Ottinger, and now he is about a half a second behind, being swarmed by Dylan Duval and Michael Conti. I think he's at risk here of losing position 3. It's the best battle on track, as you see some side-by-side between Bolin and Tien. Tien going to come across the nose of Blake Reynolds there with a Coca-Cola on board to, at least for the moment, stop the bleeding in P10. The gamble to stay out worked for Jarl, but I just don't think that car has the speed to match these top 10, top 15 drivers.
Keep an eye on that battle for position number 2. Dylan Duval is hungry in that Smithfield car. Taking a look at the 21 at Garrett Lowe. Mentioned that little bit of damage to the 21. Has backed that field up to position number 2 on back. It's about 8 car lengths up to Nick Ottinger. Ottinger setting the pace at the front of this field. Michael Conti back there as well in position number 4, looking to make something happen. One of the best battles on the racetrack right now is this battle for position number 2. As they come out of corner number 4, they'll complete 158 right here.
This race now down into the home stretch. Again, it happened under green, but that yellow flag pit stop as well solidified it, that the drivers are able to make it to the distance. So it is going to be good to go from here. As Dylan Duval now still trying to find a way around Garrett Lowe. 2 one-time race winners in this series, Justin. We've got Michael Conti as the caboose of their trio. Here's Duval now to the inside. He'll make the pass on to Garrett Lowe for 2nd.
And I think Duval needed to get that job done and quickly, because it's similar to what happened with Luza. 0.2 of a second slower once that damage was ensued and incurred on their specific Ford Mustangs tonight. Unfortunately for Lowe, he was one of the quickest cars in the second half of the race. Now, that damage has already dropped him down to the 4th position behind Conti.
Let's enjoy the sights and sounds of Dover International Speedway. We're inside of 40 laps to go. Well, how about that? A couple of chops and a couple of shots with these drivers as we rode on board with them. Graham Bolin, who you see there in the 18 Interstate Batteries entry for JGR, got chopped off by Ryan Luza. A little bit further back, Keegan Leahy, Jarl Tien nearly got into each other on the back straightaway. Tim, it, I think, is kind of hard to tell when we're up on some of these wider shots just how intense every single lap around the virtual Monster Mile is, and those onboards give a real good perspective.
You know, I think you called it a pucker moment a little bit earlier on with Keegan Leahy. He had a couple of those during that Sights and Sounds session as he moves his way back up to position number 10. There is your leader on your screen. That is Nick Ottinger. He has a 1.5 second lead back to our second place driver, Dylan Duval, and Duval being chased down by Michael Conti, about 3 lengths in between those drivers as they head down into the corner. Brad Davies in behind, Michael Conti's teammate at JRM, and Garrett Lowe has fallen to position number 5 with that little bit of damage after slapping the wall, chasing down Nick Ottinger for the lead. So we're into that stretch now, 33 laps to go in this race, and this is going to be about the point, Evan, where these tires start to wear down a little bit, and we start to see that long run really come in, and we'll see if anybody has anything for Nick Ottinger here, because this race is looking green again.
Yeah, the caution flag certainly did help drivers, Justin, who were on the very, very edge of that window where they were pinning with about 80 laps to go, which is fun and dandy on fuel. But again, as we've reiterated tonight, the tires are the primary concern. They all kind of get in a more comfortable window where they're not going to be seeing anything with the tires at the end of this race that they haven't already seen in a similarly length run earlier in the race. So they kind of have an idea of how this one's going to play out, and maybe with the exception of some of these battles, tail end at the top 10 on back, I think Nick Ottinger's sitting really good right now. He continues to grow his race lead over Duval. Duval's been able to pull a bit for Michael Conti. In fact, the battle we may have to watch would be amongst the Junior Motorsports teammates, because Davies and Conti could be third and fourth, one of the most exciting battles towards the front of the field. Of course, you see this big, long, single-file train of cars that can't get away from each other. Eric Smith has got loose up his rear end, and Bob Bryant had to jack it up to avoid them.
Yeah, things are getting very dicey across this field. Meanwhile, in Wake Ray's world, he's just having a nice and calm drive in the 16th position. This is kind of just a moment where you can just regroup as a driver and try to focus on the target in front and close back on in slowly but surely. Compare that to what's happening in P number 7, and it's completely night and day from what's going on for some of these packs.
Yeah, I mean, these drivers are going after it. Keegan Leahy wants to continue his march forward. He was one of the best drivers on the long run. He made a pass at Graham Bolin just now for 9th and 10th. This is Bobby Zelensky, who, of course, we talked about earlier, missed the pit lane. Came into tonight as kind of the Mr. Consistency in this series. Tim, points leader without a trip to victory lane. Right now, position 34. That's going to sting a lot.
Yeah, started off the night with as you look at the battle for position number 3, Michael Conti and Brad Davies. Davies has reeled in Michael Conti. He is on the march here in the final quarter of this race, looking all over the back bumper of the WR1 Sim Chassis number 8 as they dive it down into corner number 3. Davies got the apron a little bit there, lost a little bit of time on his teammate, but the Junior Motorsports cars right now running 3rd and 4th. And I think Davies is on the march here, trying to get a little closer towards the front of the field. He might have something on this long run.
Yeah, that's the best team 1-2 punch that we're seeing on track tonight as Brad Davies goes to the inside and Michael Conti rightly going to allow that True Timber teammate of his on through, and Brad Davies takes over the number 3 position. No sense in team cars slowing each other down, and Davies entering the top 3, I think, for the first time tonight under green flag conditions. So that settles up that spot. We'll see maybe if Davies has speed to reel in Duval. There's about a 0.6 of a second difference between 3rd and 2nd position. But somebody else we haven't talked a ton about tonight is Michael Gast. He's been kind of in the thick of things tonight, Justin, but that beneath entry looking pretty clean, all things considered, for Team Dillon Esports, plus 15 on the night.
Yeah, that Team Dillon Esports machine has been very quick. It's just the strategy car didn't work the way he needed it to. He's one of the drivers who are forced on 9-lap older tires because they had to take the wave around. Same situation for Nathan Lyon, who had to work his way for the back of the field after he struggled in qualifying, didn't put it in official time. He's gone from 33rd to 18th in the Roush Fenway gaming machine.
So a lot of those drivers who, Tim, plus 15 to plus 20 sounds nice, but when you have a really poor qualifying effort, we mentioned off at the top, some of those drivers actually not even getting qualifying times. Guest was one of them. May have been because he caught the ball, and that would have disallowed his Q lap. Plus 15 sounds great, but when you're starting from so far behind, you can't really afford to make those kind of mistakes early on.
You can't dig yourself out of a hole, but if it's early, it might help. Here's Chris Sherburne on your screen. Chris was involved in that first yellow flag of the evening and is trying to work his way back up through the field. As you look back at the front of the field here, and you see the 37 of Christian Chalner. You got Garrett Lowe in there, who just lost a spot to Blake Reynolds in the Coca-Cola number 3. This is the battle for about position number 11 as we work down the final few laps of this race. Got a battle for position number 2 on our hands because Brad Davies is on the hunt, goes to the inside of the True Timber number 88, picks up a spot on Dylan Duval, and 2.5 seconds or so, Evan, under green might be a tall task, but Brad Davies might have the speed to at least try to chip into this lead.
Yeah, and of course, the thing that's working against him is he's been able to get up to P2, and it made a quick work of Duval is going to be the time, because he's some 2.7 seconds off for the race leader. Justin, he could be a 10th faster, which would be incredible, and he would still not catch him because it's time by with 19 laps to go. That, I think, is Brad Davies' primary concern. About 0.2 faster, though, that time by. Never say never. Brad Davies right now, the fastest car on track.
And for Davies, he's going to have to hope a couple things go his way. One, lap traffic lets him go as quick as possible. That's been a factor for a couple drivers throughout the pack tonight. But two, you're going to have to hope that you keep on consistently gaining that time. If you have even one off lap, you're going to have a hard time reeling him. Compare that to, say, Bob Bryant. Bryant's got a chance to try and reel in Eric J. Smith for a position here.
Yeah, he's in with Leahy and Bullen drivers who have made big moves, and Bob's having a good night tonight up to P7, trying to get one more spot away from Eric J. Smith, who has been about a P5 or 6 car all night long and would like to finish in that number 6 spot, as opposed to if Bob Bryant gets to him, it could trickle down quickly to possibly not even a top 10, just with all those cars lined up behind him with Leahy and Bullen, as I mentioned, all kind of in this pack. But I thought that Brad Davies may have found something to magic him if it was the secret juice or whatever it was, but Nick Ottinger has kind of reeled it back in, settled things down, and he is now matching lap times with Davies to the point where last time by, they were identical at 23.157. So Ottinger, a little bit of a flex of the muscle that time, said, no, don't get your hopes up. This is my race now at 15 to go.
But he's pulled away from Dylan Duval and the rest of the field, so those two kind of comfortable up in front. Here's a guy that's having a great run, Steve Sheehan. He's a former winner in this series, making his way back into the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing series this year, and currently in the top 10 and trying to secure his first top 10 finish of the season. Evan, he's had some speed, just hasn't had the finishes to show for it. 14 laps to go. The fat lady hasn't sung, the checker flag hasn't flown yet, but Steve Sheehan having a great run, and Ray Alfala has dropped like an anchor, was on the pole position, now scored 1 lap down in position number 25, but this, Evan, this is a battle for position. It's 1 lap down, it's 24th. Jake Nichols ahead, trying to battle for that position.
Yeah, well, and I was going to say, and don't, kind of look now, but at 14 laps to go as well, they're fighting for what could be the lucky dog position if this race has a late race caution. The Mode Motorsports Ford of Nichols running there, and this is kind of where Jake's been tonight. Unfortunately, not a fan of the Monster Mile. Started 21st and runs in 24th now. A different journey to get to this battle that Ray Alfala took, who was best in practice, best in qualifying, and just did not have it when the race came together. So that could be an interesting duo between those two, because only one of them would get that wave by to rejoin the lead lap if a yellow is to fly. But of course, the one driver in the field who does not want it is Nick Ottinger. The car you're looking at now, Brad Davies, is probably letting the iRacing stewards know that there's debris everywhere, Justin, and it's raining, I'm sure, in his mind in 3 and 4. He needs time. He can't catch up from 2.7 seconds behind, as we've got a great battle now in the works ahead of Malik Ray, John Gorlinski, and I think that's the 5 of Matt Boosa in the mix as well.
And those types of moments for the Gibbs Gaming Machine to try and take a deep breath, calm down until you reach these battles might come in handy. A little bit of patience might settle himself on in. Same case for, say, Keegan Leahy, who, remember, has had to rally his way from the back of the pack tonight. Has a chance to get as high as 6th here, depending on how he handles these next 2 cars.
And not only is this 42 machine, Bob Bryant, going to be fighting for a good result. You talk about Steve Sheehan looking for maybe a first top 10. Bryant wants more, and he is going to bring Eric J. Smith to the ropes here late in this race. Keegan Leahy is the third car in this trio, running in P8. Look at the intensity. He's feeling it right now up and off of the quarters. He's going to put it to Bryant down to the inside in 3. He's got the spot. The 42 bails, and Keegan Leahy with a late dive moves into 7.
That was a nice save by Bob Bryant up the hill, though, to keep from losing any more positions. He's now got Graham Boland on his back bumper as Keegan Leahy looks at Eric J. Smith in the number 9. That's the battle for position number 6 as they continue on and get closer to the end. Just ahead of them, Ryan Luza bearing down on Michael Conti. You see that there on your screen, looking back from the number 8 car. That's the battle for position number 4. And Evan, somebody drops a wheel wrong in one of these battles. The caution flag comes out. You see that battle behind. Keegan Leahy picks up that spot on Eric Smith. I'm sure some of these guys are on pins and needles. Maybe no more so than Nick Ottinger, who hopes to see this checkered flag before, or the white flag before any other flag on this in the flagman's hand.
And Keegan Leahy is going to make that pass at Eric Smith. There's the end of it there. 32 went on the outside, made the move. So Keegan up now to a race high under green of position number 6. So somebody else who's just going to run out of laps in this one had a really fast car. And admittedly, P6, a ton of points for started in 29, but I'm sure Keegan would want a little bit more. And probably not going to catch up to the fight that we're watching now for 4th and 5th as that time by. We took 5 laps to go from Dover. Michael Conti got passed up by teammate Brad Davies a few laps ago, and it was the driver who dominated earlier this evening, Justin, in Ryan Luza, who's on his bumper, now trying to make a move, and I think they touched that time in 3.
Yeah, just a little bit up the road from where Eric Smith is. Luza, though, side by side right now with Conti into turn 1. And one of the important things, you've seen it from the rear view shot from Conti before, Luza was able to get the damage done, or damage fixed, because of the caution flag. The problem is, Evan, it came a little too late for some of these drivers, and all that fighting has allowed Leahy now to have a chance for a top 5.
He could be trying to join the battle here. Thought that he was too far back, Tim, but he's on the doorstep now at 30 laps to go. The primary concern, though, for Nick Ottinger up front is lap traffic, and there is none of it. He has got clear sailing, looking for 2 laps to go.
No, the only concern for Nick Ottinger is to see the white flag before any other flag here as Michael Conti, Keegan Leahy under fire. You ride on board with Keegan Leahy wheeling that race car to the inside. He'll get the little bit of a run off of corner number 4 to try to get this position as they battle for position number 4. Up in front, Nick Ottinger rounding 3 and 4, and he's getting closer. White flag in the hand of the starter.
Leahy gets the spot from Conti. He hits the top 5 for the first time tonight as we look at Nick Ottinger. All the talk into tonight was about Ryan Luza, who last week unseated him for 2nd on the all-time wins list. But the previous race winner here at Dover from back in 2013 is going to punch right back, and the Monster Mile in 2020 is tamed by Nick Ottinger.
And it should be fitting that the last driver to win 3 straight before Luza ends up coming away with a checker flag at a track he's won at before, Evan. What a performance tonight by Ottinger. And what a drive by Leahy to gain 24 positions for a top 5 after his struggles in qualifying.
Yeah, plus 24 with limited yellows to reset the field. A super impressive run for him, and you can see the drivers coming up to alongside and congratulate Nick Ottinger, series veteran Mike Conti as well, giving him a congratulatory bump, Tim, to the point that Justin made. Nick Ottinger had been the only driver to ever win 3 in a row. That happened in 2013 at Texas, Richmond, and Darlington. Luza tied that record, as I mentioned, passed him on the all-time wins list, and Nick Ottinger claims a little bit of that back as he celebrates on the front straightaway his 15th career win in the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series. This winning moment is brought to you by Coca-Cola, the official fan refreshment of eNASCAR.
Becomes the 2nd driver to win 2 races here at Dover, and he came into this evening with one of the only 2 drivers to have an average finish of in the top 10 of the drivers that have competed in 6 or more races here. So Ottinger knows this place like the back of his hand. He's going to have a mini monster to prove it, as well as he'll pick up that trophy. And what a race. 2 cautions. That's a record here too.
Zanata Records here tonight for the Dover International Speedway, and it was a great race at that. Let's take a look at your full race results tonight for round number 6 on this 2020 campaign. You can see it is Ottinger, the final margin of victory, about 2.6 seconds ahead of Brad Davies, with Dylan Duvall, a super impressive P3, leads atop Ryan Luza, who struggled to recover from damage after leading through the first cycle of green flag pit stops, who's P4, and Leahy charging to a top 5 finish. All of those drivers ahead of Michael Conti, Eric Smith, Graham Bolin, Bob Bryant, and Steve Sheehan in the top 10.
11th position tonight cycles on forward. That's where it ended up being where Blake Reynolds finished. His second best finish at Dover. His previous best was a top 10. Christian Challenger comes home in 12th, with Yarltien in 13th. Gorlinski, Ray, Lowe round out the mid-pack in the top 20, while Guest, Shearburn, Lyon, and Crowder also all finish in the top 20.
Looking at position number 21, it's Alex McCollum, Phil Diaz. Those are the only 2 drivers that finished on the lead lap with 21 and 21st. Justin Bolton had such a good run going in the very first green flag stint, finished 23rd, 1 lap down. Jake Nichols in 24th, and Ray Alfalo, your pole sitter, back in 25th. Matt Busa, 26th. Michael Guerrilla in 27th. Zach Novak had those pit road issues coming onto pit road. Salvages 28th out of this evening. Logan Clampett 2 laps back, and Chris Overland completes the top 30.
And then continuing on down, the rest of the drivers DNF'd in this one, though. I actually the likes of Tires and Zelensky, Vincent Schoenberg actually on track, but again with incidents and dropped the way down, not competitive towards the end. And it is Kerwin, Mullis, and Cook who really have issues. It is a look top to bottom at your 37 finishers tonight from Dover International Speedway. So a great race, of course. We thought off of that first lap of this race, Justin, we had a yellow in turn 1 that maybe this is going to be one of the more messy races at the Monster Mile, but as Tim noted, 2 yellows is a record low.
Yeah, a lot of drivers actually talked about tonight that they actually expected a race such as this and were hoping that it would come to fruition. Guess what? It happened. A very clean race today, a very calm, cool, collected race for many of these competitors tonight. Lots of great battling, too. One of the best races in this season so far, I have to say, especially in regards to racecraft tonight.
Well, we're going to try to catch up with our second-place finisher here in this one, Brad Davies, and there's a driver that tried to claw his way into the lead, but Brad, once you got to position number 2, trying to reel in Nick Ottinger, what were you thinking those final couple laps? Were you hoping for a caution? What was the mindset?
Yeah, the mindset was to catch Nick, but his setup was really good at the end. His car was hooked up, and there wasn't much I could have done with him. We were matching his lap times there towards the end of the race, but I think he kind of started to pull away a little bit towards the end.
Momentum going forward, and the meat of the season here in the middle of the season going towards a playoff position. How big is momentum on this, and how about the JRM team tonight? Michael Conti in the top 6 too, 2 JRM teammates in the top 6.
Yeah, the JRM cars were really strong tonight. I was really happy to see that. Actually kind of excited to pass Michael. I don't get to do that very often because he's such a great driver. And he shows up to the track every week ready to race. So it was pretty cool to get up there and race with him and get by him there towards the end. But really proud of the JRM guys tonight. Everybody that helped on the setups. And, of course, got to give a big thanks to everyone that supports us back at JRM, too.
Well, it's good to see you up in front here. A well-deserved second-place finish. Congratulations, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks when we hit Charlotte.
All right, thanks. I'm looking forward to it.
So there's Brad Davies coming home with position number 2, Evan, and what a show. And I believe we're going to go to Justin Prince with the driver of the number 41 car from Halifax, Nova Scotia, Dylan Duvall.
Yes, indeed. Standing by with him right now. Dylan, you played a bit of the strategy game tonight, took 2 tires on that final stop, and had a very strong race car tonight. How are you feeling coming away with the top 3 tonight?
Coming away with 3rd tonight just feels really good. We've had a really, really poor start to the year, which has been extremely disappointing for our entire team, and it's really nice to get that turned around. We had a really, really good Smithfield Ford Mustang tonight. We're really good on the long runs, and the strategy call was definitely, for me, the right call. I think we had top 5 pace, back half of top 5 pace the entire race, and just needed a little bit of more track position to hold on to it. But yeah, definitely a good race for us. Nice turnaround. Should be good on points, and we definitely need those.
Indeed, as well, when it comes to the type of racing tonight, a very clean, a very sportsman-filled race, a very racecraft-filled race with a lot of strategy overall, as we discussed a little bit. How did you feel it was from the track perspective to see a lot of good racing tonight, a lot of good battles?
Yeah, tonight it was definitely an interesting race for sure. It felt like tire management was key. I think that meant more than anything. I think you could have been a couple tenths off the start and then just fly by people 20 laps in. So this type of racing is definitely fun with the extreme tire wear that we have. It almost turns into a game of cat and mouse, which I'm a fan of. I mean, our cars are really good right now with what we have too, so that doesn't hurt. But yeah, I really enjoy the type of racing we have with this package. So much tire management, and definitely brings some of the driver skill back into it, in my opinion.
Absolutely. The next race on the schedule goes back towards the 1.5 miles. Your thoughts on the next race on the schedule?
Yeah, I love the 1.5 miles personally. Charlotte is a good track for me. I have a pole there and ran top 5, and I believe it was the last time I raced there. So yeah, definitely looking forward to Charlotte. Then I think we go to Atlanta after that. Two of my favorite tracks on the schedule. So definitely looking forward to those. Hoping for some more strong runs from my Stewart Haas Esports number 41.
Indeed, we'll see how you do. Thank you very much for the time. Evan, back over to you.
We're going to talk with your race winner in just a moment. Of course, hearing there from second place finisher Brad Davies and then third place finisher Dylan Duval, who, kind of that point, I think if they had gotten maybe a late race restart and had an opportunity to close in, Nick may have had a fighting chance him, but I think that just perfect amount of green flag running allowed Nick Ottinger to kind of have that veteran mindset of conserving the tires and that car craft. And as Justin has mentioned, the racecraft tonight really played in his favor.
You can sit here and think what might have been if we had a caution flag. Brad Davies and Nick Ottinger were kind of mirroring each other at the end of the race. But, you get a caution, you throw new tires on them, anything could have changed. But Nick Ottinger knows his place like the back of his hand. Brad Davies has 6 previous starts here, no stranger to being up front. And Dylan Duval had some speed and kind of held his cards close to his chest this week when we talked to him. So great to see him up here and turn that thing around. Ryan Luza and Keegan Leahy just ran out of time at the end. Those are the two that wanted the caution.
And let's see if we have the driver of the number 25 machine on the radio now, Nick Ottinger, who gets the win here tonight from Dover International Speedway. And Nick, it is number 15 on your career, and it'll be the 3rd season in a row in which you'll ride a victory lane. I know that's got to feel real good.
It feels awesome, Evan. That was honestly a workout. Just managing your stuff, and Garrett gave me a run for my money, and I really want to go back and look at it because I think I left him enough room to race me. It's just we both weren't lifting that situation, so whoever got out front was going to probably win the race. But dude, what a car! What a Logitech G William Byron esports machine. That was a testament to all the hard work with Team Connie, with John, everybody back at just William Byron esports. That was a lot of fun.
Of course, we talk about the timing of this, and kind of unfortunately on your part, Ryan Luz has been doing good, and it was often compared to you because he became the first driver to win 3 in a row since you did it, and last week passed you for second all-time to win. So how good does this feel to kind of show that younger talent coming up through the series that you've still got this, having been one of the older statesmen of the league?
You said it. It feels good. We had a little run-in with a young gun at Richmond, but we settled that. We both moved forward, and it just feels good to get back in victory lane. Especially at a track like Dover where you have to be so precise and really aggressive. But it's really hard to be patient at this track as well. We bided our time to just kind of manage our gap, holding in. My spotter Weaver just kept reading lap times to me, and God, what a car. I love coming to Dover. We've always had good cars when we come here, top 5, top 10, and just, I'm just glad our hard work paid off tonight. I mean, it's just all these guys really putting a lot of effort in. I want to thank Michael Connie and just everybody, William, for picking me to be his driver this year. I got to mess with John because he told me I was the number one driver, so maybe we need to pick it up.
Well, you get the win, as you mentioned, and you're good here at Dover. You joined Michael Conti as the only repeat winners here. And both Brad and Dylan, when we talked to them, said that this was a track where you didn't have to be patient. You had to kind of, do the dance with the Miles the Monster, if you would, and not just go 100% each lap. And obviously your experience came into play tonight for the win. We go back to the intermediate racetrack, though, with Charlotte next week. But the super cool thing about tonight is you're going to walk away with an actual mini replica of the Miles the Monster trophy. So no, the cash is good. Everybody gets the cash any week, but not everybody gets that piece of hardware that's going to be coming your way.
That thing looks good. He looks pretty good.
You got a place picked out for you yet?
Right next to me. Right next to me.
And I was joking earlier. Yeah, we were talking with the track president, and we were talking about holding the car, and I said, maybe if you get the check at the end of the year, you can put it in the hand as well.
Oh, that's a good idea. I like the way you think, Gavin.
Charlotte next week. We're back to the intermediate racetracks. Is that one as well? Longest race as well on the intermediates of the season. Is that a place you think you can find success?
I think so. I mean, I think we brought a good card for tonight, obviously, with winning. I think we can take some things we learned through testing the last couple of days because we had a complete 180 where we weren't good, I would say, 3 days ago. And we just put our heads down, and our guys at William Byron Esports, John, everybody by Brian, Michael Connie, Matt Busa, and all them guys, Logan Clampett, we put our head down and just kept at it. I mean, I think we can bring something good at Charlotte. It's going to be a little bit different package. We're good at Homestead, so hopefully we can keep on this grind of performing well.
A good showing tonight, Nick. We appreciate the time. Again, congratulations on the win here tonight from Dover International Speedway. Now let's take a look at our Coca-Cola move of the race in today's Dover 200. And you heard Nick talking about it as well there, as he found himself in a position where you had to go head-to-head. You had to get the job done. And let's watch Garrett Lowe here in the 21. Moves it in on Nick Ottinger, Tim, with the onboard.
Yeah, he's trying to get that move done, and they goes to the outside, and they battle for that position, and then Garrett Lowe gets a little wide off the corner and slaps a little bit of damage onto that number 21 car right there, and that will be the move of the race for Nick Ottinger, and it was the move of the race for Garrett Lowe, but he ended up moving the opposite direction. So congratulations to Nick Ottinger, picks up another victory, and he looked like the form that he was a couple of years ago where he was so dominant in this series. So congratulations there. A couple of JRM teammates in the top 10. You had Bob Bryant, Steve Sheehan in the top 10, a couple of Nova Scotia drivers in the top 10. There's all kinds of storylines, but we'll fight about that in 2 weeks when we head to Charlotte.
Yeah, that incident as well. Garrett Lowe drops it to P16. Justin, you mentioned it, though, talking with the drivers. A great night here tonight from Dover, as you now put 6 races of the 20 on this 2020 campaign behind us. Your final thoughts on tonight?
Like I said, it was a very clean race tonight. Lots of good battles throughout the field. And what intrigued me the most tonight, Evan, was the amount of strategy we've seen tonight. The differences in some of the thought processes, the differences in how drivers built their cars and how well they conserved their tires tonight. In the end, the driver who felt very confident in his long run pace the most out of anyone in the conversations I had is Nick Ottinger. Is the man who comes away with the checker flag tonight, Evan.
And of course, Tim, we mentioned back to Charlotte. We've seen what this intermediate package brings to us already in 2020, having gone to Homestead a little bit earlier, which Nick referenced when we were talking to him down at Victory Lane. But as well, it is going to be a bit different because it's the longest race on an intermediate we're going to see all year, 200 laps in distance. So that'll change some of the strategy parts of the race, and I think will allow those drivers to use a bit of those smarts on top of the pit box to better position themselves.
You know, we've seen the last 2 races, Evan, with Richmond. We've seen a few caution flags in that one. We come to Dover where we only have 2 caution flags. I don't know what the pace is going to expect in 2 weeks' time when we go to Charlotte, but you mentioned it, longest race of the season, and we've seen some first-time winners there before. We've seen some surprise winners there before, so we're getting into the middle portion of the season where points really start to add up and points start to count for those drivers making a playoff and a championship run. Charlotte's going to be key when it comes to the big picture in 2 weeks' time.
And we look forward to seeing that one in 2 weeks' time. But until then, round number 6 falls into our rearview mirror. Appreciate you being with us all night long, even through the small technical issue halfway, as that does it for us here tonight from Dover. On behalf of the entire team over at eNASCAR and iRacing, and of course, for your broadcast team tonight. For Justin Prince, Tim Terry, and myself, Evan Pasoko, I want to thank you for tuning in and to congratulate now 15-time Coke Series winner Nick Ottinger as he gets his first of 2020. We'll be back in 2 weeks' time on Tuesday, May the 12th for the virtual Charlotte Motor Speedway. That race and every race of the 2020 eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series can be found right here on the iRacing Sports Network. Until next time, though, good night from Dover.